Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Africa Straight Talk. We are Africa's unapologetic podcast that dives deep into the African immigrant experience in a unique and straightforward way. I'm Manuel Nadeau, and we truly appreciate your continued support of our podcast. Joining me today is my co-host, Kwesi Wilson, a communications studies professor at College of Alameda, and the host of podcast Telling Tall Stories. Also with us is our not-so-new co-host, Zika Oko, a former TV and radio host and digital marketing professional. If you want to be a guest on our show, email us africastraighttalk@gmail.com. Hello, Zika. Hello, Kwesi.
Hey, Manuel.
Good, whatever time it is, wherever you're at.
We are in the month of March. March is International Women's Month. That's the time that we celebrate women, we honor them. And I wanted to say congratulations, Zika. This is your celebration, Women's Month.
Thank you.
To me, it should be every day.
Exactly.
It should be.
Every day.
You have no idea what women go through.
Exactly. It should be every day. Every day. Because the work and contributions is immersed, and it should be every day. I don't think they get enough credit. The reason why women don't get paid enough for the same job as men is because men don't see the value of the work they do. And even
You're right.
when it comes to around the house, if you read this book, Second Shift, right? And when people go to work and they come back, couples go to work and come back. When they come back home, they all go to work and earn money, right? They work and bust their behind at work. And then they come home, and who's doing the work at home? Cleaning, taking care of the kids, all that stuff. That's the second shift, right? That a lot of credit doesn't go to women in terms of what they do. And when you see that it's a lot of work, then you want the men to also participate in doing those work because we've gendered the chores. So I think this should be everyday thing. I could go on and on and on.
Kwesi missed out. I thought you were going to say that when we get back home, when the women get back home after working, they do a second shift, which you said, but they don't get paid for that. Yeah. No one pays them for that.
That's the point I was making.
Mm-hmm. You see?
That's the point I'm making, yeah.
The beauty of it is that for this year, what it stands for, what the International Women's Month or Day, which was on the 8th of March, but it's celebrated, all month. It's leading a change, women shaping a sustainable future.
This is
the thing it stands for.
That is the theme for this year.
Yes, for this year, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it's a celebration of women's achievements, past and present, advocacy for gender equality and inclusion, like Kwesi said, awareness of ongoing challenges women face globally, empowerment of the next generation of girls and women.
Yeah.
Now, once upon a time, I was the next generation of girls and women. I was a girl once upon a time, and it looks like I've not seen any empowerment or change as much as we've been pushing for the longest time. But it's all good. I hope that sometime we will see the difference and the world will feel the difference that women can make.
I think, to be honest with you, I think they have courses in colleges called Women's Studies, right?
Okay.
And I took some women's studies courses when I was in college, but it's optional. And I think that it shouldn't be optional. It should be mandatory, part of every curriculum, so that people are learning the experience, because women are more than half of the human population.
Oh, yes.
The men controlling the administrations and the curriculum, they're probably not going to say it's mandatory that you take that,
And that's part of the problem that needs to be addressed. That's part of. But talking about the women, the theme for this year, is there a woman other than your family members, other than your friends, that has done something, whose work has impacted you as career choices, a woman role model, somebody other than your direct family member or friend that is a woman and whose work has impacted you? Nado?
Well, I will really give it to these the lady that who fought during the segregation and refused to sit behind the bus,
Rosa Parks.
Rosa Parks.
Yeah.
You know,
Rosa Parks, yeah.
someone that really impacted me in terms of the empowerment of women.
How about you, Zika?
One of them or a couple of them, but let me limit them to two people. Unfortunately, they are namesakes, and I also share the same name with them. The first it will be Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I'm sure
I know who that is.
yeah, an author, a beautiful woman, a mother, wife. She's just so I just love what she does, and she's inspired me in more ways than one, really, in terms of her
She inspired you.
literary, in terms of her books. The way she communicates with her books, the way she represents herself. Very authentic.
Yeah.
Nigerian African woman. She doesn't second guess who she is. She doesn't change her accent
No,
because
not
she's
at
in
all.
a particular space. Her hairstyle, her way of dressing is just super authentic, and I love her for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I met her when she was here in San Francisco last year, as a matter of fact, and she signed her latest book to me.
Her book. You
Yeah.
see?
Yeah.
So the second person, who is also her namesake, who is also my namesake, is Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the current World Trade Organization boss.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So she's the first woman in that capacity.
The capacity,
I think first
yeah.
African woman in that capacity.
Yes.
And she's also very authentic. If you see the way she dresses, you know that she is proudly African.
Right.
And coming from Nigeria as the finance minister, she grew, her portfolio from there, and the world recognized her for that. And she is now on the world stage, making history in a good way.
Right.
So she's also one woman that has inspired me to dream big and not to shortchange myself because of wherever I get to in life.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the two women I love, and I want to celebrate them
Well,
this year.
since you got two, I might also get two. There's too many to list. But Nado, you missed
Telling
out
you.
because you only had one.
Yeah.
Nado, you might as well add your mom now before we continue.
No, that's fine. You go ahead. You go ahead.
All right. So for me, it will be Winnie Mandela. I happen to be a member of this group. It's called Pan-African Youth Writers Association. And they were encouraging African youth to write their narrative, their stories, right? This is right in Ghana. And from a very early age, I knew I was headed towards journalism and this career path because I was always reading newspapers and stuff like that. And I was always reading a lot of books. And so I joined this Pan-African Youth Writers Association, and I just joined, and Winnie Mandela had been released from prison. And she came to Ghana, and she was invited to come and speak to us about the importance of writing African narratives. And from that point on, I became a Pan-Africanist in thinking, in my way of seeing the world beyond just Ghana. When she was talking about the South African struggle, I connected with that, just being able to understand and see the challenges facing us as Africans. So it's just changed the path of my life and impacted me till today. Then I'm also grateful for a lady that paved way for many people in the United States, African Americans, that is, which is, they call her the Black Moses, but
Tubman?
Harriet Tubman. I just sometimes, I have a quote from her on one of the hoodies that I make, and it says, "If you hear the dogs, keep going. If you see the torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after you, keep going. Don't ever stop. Keep going. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going." How she was able to go back and forth and back and forth and never for once was arrested or caught, freed everyone. and then eventually helped with the Civil War. I have to say her impact, her intellect, her intuition, her bravery, I don't think we really sat down to really weigh how she was able to pull that off at that time when even
Yeah.
the men were afraid to escape, you know, to take people to freedom. So I think those are my two favorite.
All right,
Yeah, I thought,
Richie.
there was a talk that they were going to put her image on a currency. I don't know how far that
Yes,
has gone,
the Republicans shut it down, but
unfortunately.
yeah, they shut
Well,
it
well,
down
well,
quick.
well. Well, speaking of women celebration, we're going to be celebrating an African in the diaspora today on the show.
Yeah.
Zika, go ahead and take it away.
I don't think it's a coincidence that we are having a woman on the show today. So I'm pleased to introduce our guest, Gizelle Mapanda, a registered nurse with 15 years of experience across emergency medicine, psychiatric care, cardiac telemetry, and skilled nursing facilities. She is currently working in the emergency department at Kaiser Permanente and North Bay Health, managing high acuity patients in fast-paced clinical settings. It's interesting to know that her passions for nursing began at the age of 8 after witnessing critical gaps in hospital care in the Democratic Republic of Congo, an experience that shaped her lifelong mission to return and serve her people. In addition to bedside nursing, Gizelle is the founder of a nurse consulting business focused on improving care standards and clinical oversight. She also teaches health education online using digital platforms to empower communities with practical prevention-based knowledge. Behind the scenes, she is developing a nurse-advised telehealth app designed to expand healthcare access in underserved regions, such as Congo, Haiti, and other developing nations. Now, through her clinical experience, education, and innovation, Gizelle Mapanda is building a global health voice rooted in both compassion and systems level impact.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. That's quite the introduction. Wow, thank
Yeah,
We read
it's supposed to be longer than this, Giselle. You've done this for 15 years and you've done amazing work in this 15 years.
yeah.
Oh,
Good
I don't know.
job.
I don't know. The work is so much. I still feel like I'm so small in the whole picture.
You've shared that your passion for nursing began when you were just 8 years old. That was really a young age. After
hmm
witnessing gaps in hospital care in the DRC, could
hmm
you take us back to that moment and share what you saw and how it shaped you?
Absolutely. So, as you guys have mentioned, I am from the Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I came to America back in 1996. Before that, of course, I was born and grew up back home. And long story short, there was an incident where I was sick with something. I don't even remember what I was sick with. But my mother took me to the hospital. And to this day, I can close my eyes and still see the visual. We went into the hospital and it was a big courtyard. It's one of the biggest hospitals out there. It's called Mamaimo. And it had a huge courtyard. And on that courtyard was just like a sea of people. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where people are just writhing in agony, like people are crying, people are people. It was just like it got me. To this day, I still see the visual, I still hear the voices. Now, as in many things in Africa, if you have the means, you can skip the line and basically go inside. Somehow my mother was able to go inside and I got my treatment. But even walking out,
Yeah.
I remember how struck I was by, what I saw. And I looked at my mom and I asked her what was going on. I don't remember the specific words, of course, but I remember that day I told her, I was like, she was like, yeah, these people are waiting to see the doctor. And I was like, asking, what is a doctor? What do they do? And then I was like, I'm going to be a doctor because I want to help these people. It was just, I still remember that moment. And that's where my dream, my passion began, really. That's what sparked it.
Many people have childhood dreams. Usually they change over time, but yours seems to have stayed intact. What kept the vision alive? I know you said you wanted to help people, but were you ever tempted to, become a lawyer,
hmm
something else, chase the money, chase the bag?
You know, I think that no, the answer to that is just a no for several reasons. I think everybody is born with certain natural instincts or intuitions or characteristics that are naturally God given to them. Like, for those of us who believe in God or people who don't, but who you were naturally born to be. Now, sometimes, everybody in their walk, in their journey of life get to discover, and some people don't, but get to discover what that is at different stages. I think that experience helped tap into my God-given passion at a very early age. So it hit such a place of truth for me, even in my regular interaction in my family, my role in my family, my role with my friends. I'm the type of person to sacrifice my own comfort for the comfort of others. I am that helper. I am that caregiver. It's just like, it brings me joy to be in a position to help somebody else. Well, my parents raised me to have confidence that I can do anything. There was also always that push and support in, yes, be a doctor. Yes, go into the medical field. Yes. So there was a lot of support surrounding that passion that it just kind of stayed intact. It shifted a little bit. It did. Like I said, I wanted to be a doctor because as a child, you understand that the doctor helps people that are sick. So when I got to college, I did my freshman year as a pre-med. And then from freshman to sophomore year, long story short, I shifted into nursing as a backup degree that I was going to do nursing and then work as a nurse to support myself through med school. But a series of things, life and everything. But I really discovered that my passion in helping people was best fed as a nurse and best served as a nurse because, doctors, they come in for 5-10 minutes and see you and move on. But the nurse is the one implementing all the orders, holding your hand, helping clean you, helping you. So the role for me, once I got to differentiate the two roles, I felt better fitted to be a nurse. So I stayed as a nurse.
So you have the Mother Teresa spirit.
I don't know.
Well, having worked in a fast-paced environment like emergency medicine, psychiatric care, cardiac telemetry, and skilled nursing facility, how have these different specialties shaped the nurse you are today?
Oh, good question. I think that I'd like to think that it's helped me be a more well-rounded nurse. In the field, you'll come across, and having worked in all these different areas of nursing and different facilities, you'll come across nurses that have only worked in psych or have only done ER. And when you meet those nurses, there's a clear narrowness in how they view patients and their care and, the work that they do. Not that it's wrong or anything, but like I said, it's narrow. Rightfully so, because you only, in nursing, in healthcare, experience counts more than education, really. Yeah. Being exposed to different facets and types of nursing and facilities has put me in a position to really understand the life spectrum, the care, the different types of patients that I can have in a more well-rounded way. Because, a nurse that's never worked in a psych facility may encounter a psychiatric patient in a psychiatric crisis in the emergency room and not be able to understand or have the skills to really help that client. There's somebody like me having worked in a psych facility and gotten the training and the experience to deal with such a client. Even though I see them in the emergency room, I am better equipped to, one, understand, and then two, have the skills to be able to be a little bit more effective.
Yeah, from your experience so far, your all-roundedness, or what you've achieved so far as a nurse in the different parts of the hospital you have worked in, I think you've used those skills to try to develop what we understand as an advanced telehealth app. which you said is aimed at underserved regions like Congo and Haiti. Could you share more about that vision and the impact you hope it will have in this part of Africa?
Yeah, absolutely. So this app and the work I'm doing now with doing education online, it's very much in its infancy and new. So I'm excited. I'm fueled. Once upon a time, before the era of and the boom of social media, once upon a time when I came to America, I used to think one day, maybe when I retire, I will go back to Congo or I will go back to Africa and do something. And then, with social media, it still didn't really click for me because, I can be tunnel vision. Sometimes I'm very ambitious. So when I put my mind to something, I close all blinds and I just kind of focus. And I've done that. I focused on building my career. As you can see, I went from nursing homes, from nursing home to now being in the ER I can't even fathom a path of how I got there. It's really God's intervention. But anyways, long story short, recently, especially with the boom of AI now, I looked at myself and said, I have 15 years in the field of nursing right now. Every time I want to go back to Africa, my parents are like, it's not safe. It's this, it's that, it's that. But, I started to ask myself, so if I am not yet in a place to physically uproot myself and go, and my life is here, something wasn't clicking. Where I am and what I dreamed to be, the gap was closing, but it just has recently clicked that, especially with social media and AI, I can have a reach in Africa without having to physically be there. So that's how, the idea started to grow. So this AI app came about because, of course, although my mom and dad and siblings are here, but we have family back home and very much connected and talking to them. A lot of times with our people in Africa, people don't seek help or medical attention until they've been dealing with symptoms for months or weeks or years even. By the time that they seek help, sometimes something that could have been easily dealt with now becomes a chronic or serious issue. So having that in mind, I came up with the idea of what if it's a twofold thing. Health education online is one thing, but the app is a way for people to be able to present their symptoms in a real lifetime, and get nursing advice and, to say this is something you could deal with at home. You have 48 to 72 hours, or manage this for whatever amount of time before and if it doesn't go away, seek medical advice. Or, there are things like chest pain. Somebody is confused all of a sudden. Somebody, arm is not now limb, or one side of their face is drooping. There's things that are immediate emergency situations that should seek medical attention right away. Sometimes back home, because of lack of knowledge, because of lack of education, or just lack of resources, people don't seek medical help until it's too late.
Do you think that is because people sometime in Africa will try to go to the traditional healing process, the traditional medicine, before coming to the modern medicine?
I think it's both. Medicine is not wrong, but one thing and this is where the health education online is going hand in hand with the app. It's not just an app I'm going to launch, but really also focusing on creating a platform that teaches and reinforces knowledge sharing, because people don't know what they don't know. Traditional medicine route is often taken because it's more cost effective for people. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it does work, but a lot of times people don't even know what they're dealing with. So they're just kind of blindly doing things. Yeah. Or somebody can fall down or become confused. They're like, oh, go to sleep, whereas it could have been signs of stroke and this should have gotten attention right away. So that's where this app is going to come in, and I'm going to make it, so that people are able to speak into instead of typing, because not everybody is literate. I'm going to do Lingala, French, Haitian Creole, and English. That's where kind of like the starting point of the 4 languages. But they're able to speak in Lingala, say what their symptoms are, and I am developing the algorithm of this app to be able to detect green, something to manage, yellow, something that needs, medical attention, whatever amount of time, and red, something that they need to seek help right away. Lastly, one additional feature will be to partner with doctors in the Congo where they can have an option to speak to a doctor that can specifically look into their situation, assess their symptoms, tell them which medications to go take or which lab test or imaging that they need, or even tell them right away that they need to go to a hospital.
Basically give them medical advice.
Yes.
And directions and stuff. I think it's a really, 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 really great idea because with a lot of Africans, we don't like, we tend to not want to entertain the things we don't like. So if we don't want, especially when the COVID happened, right? If we don't want to have the COVID, we just deny that the symptoms. Oh, it's not COVID, it's malaria. And they'll say it's the health. And so that really impedes preventative health and people going to go get things until they only go to the hospital when it's too late.
Yeah.
And I wanted to really circle back to, we've talked a lot about your experience, right? And you have quite a lot of it. And I'm wondering if there's a moment that, like an aha moment that you thought, this is why I chose this career. Like, some days that you feel like a win and you go back to why, when you were a kid, you saw that hospital and people were waiting, and now you're on the other side. Is this a day that you've said, oh, I'm glad, I'm happy I chose this career path?
I think that honestly, my aha moment is my reason why, and to go, the fuel is Congo. Because so I started a process of getting my master's, and my first assignment was really talking about your passion, right? Some of the same questions you guys are asking me. Why are you doing this? And I really thought about it past just that moment, but I did some research in the Congo. As of right now, there are 0.9 healthcare workers for every 1,000 citizens. Not even a 0.9 in terms of like CNAs and doctors and nurses and anybody in healthcare capacity. 5 years, let's just say 5 years, but by 2030, it's going to be 0.4. The situation is dire. I cry. Sometimes I cry thinking about my people, thinking about my country. That's what fuels me. It's fueled me my whole life. Coming to America as a Black African back in the 90s, as a dark-skinned West African girl with nappy hair, okay? And I come into a public school in Oakland, and the narrative, even in these young children, was, you're not going to be shit. You think these white people are going to give you a job as a doctor? You think you're going to be anything in life? And unfortunately, this narrative has been passed down to them. But what set me apart and what kept me focused, because after being in America for 3 years, I was the valedictorian in my middle school. Mind you, I didn't know English at all, but graduated after 3 years as valedictorian. So what kept me and what my parents made sure I always remember was, we are Congolese. Remember where you come from. Don't forget the plight and the pain and the struggles, those you left behind. The opportunity to be in America was just that, too great of an opportunity for me to be sidetracked. So my parents made sure to keep me focused on that. And that focus is what's fueling me till today. It keeps me up at night. Not that I'm rich or anything like that, but as a nurse in California, I do well. I can sit in my own little corner and have my own little house and eat my little steak and be okay. But I'm like, I know God didn't bring me from Kinshasa and give me all these opportunities to be in America and be able to be an ER nurse. Now I've been in the ER for 10 years with this type of experience, for me to just sit down with it, collect a paycheck or whatever personal gain and sit down. The fuel, the passion is and has always been rooted in Congo. It's never wavered.
You're listening to Africa Straight Talk, your go-to place for African immigrant experience.
Well, you just spoke about your Congolese background, how you came over to this country and worked very, very hard. You are an African-born immigrant. This group of immigrants, a fast-growing segment of the diaspora, and they face additional hurdles. What are some of the difficulties our diaspora is having navigating the complex insurance system and cultural discordance here in the United States?
Well, let me give you an example, and from that example, you'll understand why. So recently, there was a lady, Congolese lady, that I saw her at Kaiser when I was working, but she was there as a patient. We know each other from church. So we stopped and talked, whatever. Long story short, a couple of days later, she sent me a message and she's like, I have this bill, this medical bill. She didn't have her insurance yet. Her insurance wasn't going to kick in for a couple of days. And she had almost $15,000 from that ER visit. And she's like, I don't know what to do. Like, you're like, what am I going to do with this? What she didn't know is that Kaiser, among many other hospitals, have programs that if you are unable to pay your medical bills, they basically write it off as a tax write-off. That is, American-born citizens grow up generation from generation understanding that this is a country that the government has bailouts and has systems in place to help you when you hit a roadblock in your finances or in your house or in your health and whatever. Because even though there's racism, even though there's systemic, all these things, these helping hand situations are implemented in the system. What diaspora, especially African-born diasporas, they're not always aware of the resources available to them to help them, especially when times get hard, or to help them in tough situations. Or even, for example, my parents bought their first home through a program back in the day called NACA. NACA was, a government implemented program to help first-time home buyers, basically, be able to become homeowners with very little down payment, and really working with your income. And my dad at that point had already declared bankruptcy. And so they had financial situations, but just knowing, they were able to buy their first house through that program. So African-born people don't always know that there are resources in place in the system to be able to help them get a boost.
That's quite unfortunate that that information is not as popularized as it ought to be amongst the African American population. And something I've also noticed is that due to provider bias, lack of cultural competency, and historical mistrust of the medical system, many diasporans like you and I, or maybe I am Kwesi and Emmanuel.
Yeah.
You and I, girl. I'm one of
you're in the medical system, so you're privileged. Most of us have lower engagement, which results in misdiagnosis and poorer health outcomes. I have been in that situation at some point, but I want to know what your take is on this and what your advice to this to our community. What would you say? What would your advice be?
I think having an understanding. First of all, yes, racism exists, bias exists, but once you understand the situation that you're in, you're not going to act the same way on land as you will act in water. Understanding that, hey, I am now in water, a person acts differently to acquire the skills necessary to be able to survive. And I think that's the advice that I will give the Africans in the diaspora or being in a place like America. Yes, for example, Black people in general, because as Africans, we are piggyback onto the plight of the African American, the history of the African American, the disenfranchisement that they face, because a white person just sees a Black person, and they have this history of racism and prejudice in this country. So we get that same treatment as just piggybacked. But understanding that this is the environment that you're in. One, you have to be your own self advocate. In a country like America, those in Africa is a little different, right? Like, internet connection is not always the same. You know, sometimes the government decides to just cut everybody off and whatever. But if you are in America, you have to be your own self advocate first. Get online. If you're dealing with something, you go to the hospital. You can't just take the doctor's words at face value, because in doing research, it will put you in a better position to make informed decisions, to ask informed questions. When a doctor can sense that you know a thing or two about maybe your diagnosis or what you're talking about, then they may take the time and be more careful to come at you correct, as opposed to you just blindly accepting whatever they tell you. And they may not even take the time to tell you anything of value or give you some, quick fix BS, not that I've seen this done a lot, but I do see it.
Thank you very much for this advice, because this is a very important advice. By educating yourself before you go to your doctor, it's really, really a good advice.
One of the things that she said that I also want to point out, just based on my preview, just to push back a little, Google is just a search engine which looks at the internet as a whole and everyone else that's published stuff on there, and it will just pick out the key terms. So you don't necessarily have to have the credentials to get your stuff to come up on Google, right?
Sure.
People's stuff gets optimized. So still, when you Google, you want to authenticate the source. It's just like you wouldn't come to the hospital and, have me, Quincy Wilson, do open heart surgery on you because I don't have the credentials, right?
Right.
In the same manner, when you see content online, you also want to do some due diligence to see who's speaking. Does this person have the credentials to talk about all that, What is the most challenging shift in your career? And what did it teach you?
Okay. Before I answer that, let me just answer your Google. I think that if you come with misinformation, you're in a better position because you're now in a position to be corrected, right? Because it's not like go on Google and have Google diagnose you and give you all the things, but to learn something, even if you learn the wrong thing, you'll bring it to the table and ask questions to your provider, and, where they can correct you and set you straight and really educate you, because now it shows an interest and for intuition and insight into what you're actually dealing with, as opposed to a person who doesn't do anything and doesn't.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true.
So the most challenging shift I've had was a couple got into an argument, and the mother stormed out. She had twin toddlers. I think they were maybe 2 or 3, and got into a car in a state of being upset, got onto the freeway and got into a car accident, hit the middle ramp, and she died on the spot. And they brought both the mother and the 2 toddlers. Thankfully, the kids were okay. But the children were there crying, not knowing all these strangers, all of us healthcare workers, storming them. And we couldn't get in touch with the father for several hours. That situation to this day just broke me.
Yeah, it's traumatic. Yeah.
Right? It was so traumatizing to just see these kids and be like, they don't even know what's going on. Like, their mother is gone. Their dad doesn't even know where they are. And these kids are with all these strangers. And then thinking also, how is the news going to be received from the father and stuff? I think that was just, those situations like that remind you of the human aspect. Because sometimes in medicine, people you'll see doctors and nurses and healthcare workers referring to people as their diagnoses, right? Like, oh, the hypertension or the high blood pressure patient or the chest painer or whatever, right? Like, part of it is personal protection, because human nature is always finding ways to protect itself, because we deal with traumatizing situations every day. So our bodies and our minds are finding ways to also make it possible for us to be able to come back and do this every day. So part of that is reducing people to just their diagnosis and, so that's a human thing in itself. But I think that what I try not to lose sight of is the human behind the diagnosis, the real life changing situation behind the presenting case that we're receiving, because we meet you, we have a snapshot of a moment in your life. And a lot of these moments, especially in the emergency room, a lot of these moments are life-changing moments that affect people way long after we no longer see them, after we stop dealing with them, after they get discharged, after they go back home. And there are those situations that hit you so like a whiplash. It just takes you back to that human place of like, oh my God, this is a life-changing, life-altering event. Yeah.
Obamacare made preventive care free as a way to lower healthcare costs. What would you say are the biggest impediments to Africans engaging in preventive care?
I think the biggest obstacles for Africans is that, unfortunately, I don't know if this is a learned behavior from post-colonialism or the corruption in our home, learned selfishness, because our cultures were never naturally selfish. That's how we got to be so exploited in the first place, I believe. But I think that we have a culture of gatekeeping. We have a culture of gatekeeping knowledge. Now, when in a lot of African communities, when someone is in a learned position, they possess whatever knowledge, they keep it for themselves and often die with it without creating community resources that can benefit the community as a whole. I don't know if this is something that the white man has taught us, because the opposite happens in white man country. Thing I noticed when I came here with this dream of becoming a healthcare worker, CPR, the average person that passes out, the person that will do CPR on them is most likely 90% or more not a healthcare worker. So to say knowledge and information is commonly taught and encouraged and passed around to everybody as a whole, right? They want their public to be knowledgeable, and information is so easily shared. The opposite happens in our African communities. There's this gatekeeping of, I want to be the only one who knows this, right? And then I die with it. And then it's another 5, 10, 20, 50 years in that household, in that community, in that family, before another one person reaches a status where they have knowledge that can profit the others. So I think that preventative care becomes a challenge because, and that's what I, in a very small scale, oh my gosh, humbly saying so, but that's what's fueling this platform that I am working on, and this healthcare app, to really put people in a position to share the knowledge. No, I just did a CPR course a CPR video on CPR in Lingala. And mind you, I don't have a big platform yet, but it got like 5,000 views in in a day or two, just for people to this is just information, life-saving information that everybody should know. I don't want to be the only one that knows something that everybody has to come to me, right? Because there's this culture of prestige and I'm better than you, or I know more than you. And so that makes it very challenging for Africans in general, because, that's just kind of like the culture we have. One person wants to always be better than everybody else. They don't want to share what they know or what they have for the benefit of the community. So
yeah, there's no better way to say that, Gizelle, because really that's what happens amongst some African people, especially those who feel they know. But what would you say are some simple things we can do to increase this preventative care for ourselves and for our community right now in the diaspora and even back in Africa for those who will be listening?
I think that People in Africa, I can't speak too much for people in Africa. I can only speak a little bit because, I have a small window through my family members that I talk to. But I think that Africans in the diaspora, we have a responsibility. Why? Because we've lived back home. We have a perception and the realities of back home, but the veil has also been lifted for us coming across to the affluent countries and realizing, one, this is not paradise, right? Like, it's not paradise here. It's a rat race here. There's struggles here. One, and then two, understanding like, hey, the things that the white man has told us not to do back home, he's taken those very things and has implemented it in his own system. He doesn't encourage our African leaders to take care of their own people. However, in his own country, even in whatever scale or capacity, arguable, right, good or bad, but he has implemented those very same government helps and government systems, and basically the government has a responsibility for its people. Whereas if when there is an African leader that wants to do that for its own people, they're killed, they're stopped. So those of us in the diaspora, now the veil has been lifted. So because of that, we have a responsibility to go back. I believe Africa will change through the works and the backs of those of us in the diaspora, because those left back home, there's still a veil in their eyes that they can't prosper back home. Everybody have this dream of coming to America or going to Europe, right? Thinking that it's paradise over there. And then you get here and you're like, oh, there's homeless people. It's a rat race. I work day, night, whatever. There's no goo, right? There's no like sweetness of life over here. Right. I don't even like how you have it back home.
It's not paradise.
Sweetness of life, and they don't even know it. So because the veil has been lifted for us in the diaspora, I think it is our responsibility to go back and teach and create opportunities and give back, and even in whatever small capacity, like the app that I am trying to implement. There is, do I think it's going to go viral tomorrow? Absolutely not. I'm looking at what is life going to be like 5, 10, 20 years from now. The idea of telehealth is not really there in Africa just yet, but I'm not going to wait for 30 more years before it reaches there. It's only going to reach there when somebody walks over and starts it, and that person can be me. Why not me? And I think it's the same mentality that all of us in the diaspora need to have, because we know better.
Right. Yeah, it was multifaceted, actually. I could go on and on this very topic here as to why, but it's multifaceted. But I also wanted to find out the little small things that we can do, right, to really shape our health. In terms of, when somebody smokes cigarettes, we are quick to point out that, oh, this will kill you, right? But we also don't realize that we don't eat to nourish ourselves. A lot of people don't eat to nourish themselves. They eat to comfort themselves. So what are some of the changes we could do with our diet that could prevent diseases that could be preventable? I feel like if you die of a disease that could have been prevented, it was a premature death. And so what are some of the ways to prevent such deaths?
I think eating real food. Basically.
What is real food?
Real food is things that grow out of the earth. If you can get it organic, if you can get it from small farmers, even better. Unfortunately, especially in these, quote unquote, affluent countries where we live, that is becoming, scarily a thing of the past. I saw yesterday in a commercial, I don't know if it's AI and, nowadays it's hard to tell, but French fries that can now be manufactured from a pill. So they put this pill in the oil and French fries. What? It's insane. It's absolutely
that is sickness.
Nothing French about that, Nado, right?
No, nothing French about that.
I think 80%, if not more, to 90% of health is rooted in food, what you consume, period.
Balancing the meal, having vegetables and having, all the things that give you the micronutrients, the macronutrients, the fats, the, protein, all that stuff, and people not understanding it and eating for comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Ice cream, the top of ice cream, they just eat the ice cream,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so those are the things that I feel that many of us could make the change
Yes, absolutely.
in just
Unfortunately, it's really scary what the Food and Drug Administration is becoming, especially in these first world countries like that we live in. Like I said, real food our children, our grandchildren will one day not understand what that is because it's getting to a place where everything they will deal with will be manufactured, will be processed, will be fake, will be lab grown, and would be a shell of
Impossible Burger.
because the sickness industry, healthcare industry, but the sickness industry here, unfortunately, is a huge business.
Yeah,
it's a huge business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Money over health, I guess. But I think that overall, answering this question is different for people in the diaspora than people back home. I think that people back home are still in a better position, but they too are dealing with corrupt leaders that allow the scraps of whatever BS that we're dealing with here to be dumped back home. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gizelle, I have one more question for you. I think it's our final question for the day.
Okay.
I want to link it to two actors. One is based here in the US and one is based in Nigeria, if I'm correct.
Okay.
Lupita Nyong'o and Michelle Dede. Now, these two actors, they are creating awareness. They're talking so loudly about something. And that is really connected to a lot of women, and that is fibroids. Right? If you go to the social media platforms, you see that they've shared their own personal stories about the sizes of fibroids that have been taken out from their bodies.
Wow.
We're talking about food here. I want to believe that food also plays a role. The kind of food we eat as women, especially, plays a role in this our reproductive, organs. Now, can you shed some light on these fibroids? Are they preventable? How can one detect it early and treat them?
So fibroids are tricky because one can know they have them and one can not know they have them. Let me give you two examples. Myself and one of my best friends, I won't say her name because I'll keep her identity confidential. We both have fibroids. She knew, I didn't know. I didn't know I had fibroids until I got pregnant. And my baby was growing in my uterus. And when I went in for my ultrasounds, they discovered that I had 7 fibroids. And I never in my life knew that I had fibroids. Now, fibroids are non-cancerous growth in your uterus or in or around your uterus. For some people, it causes problems. For some other people, it doesn't cause problems. Now, for those people that a lot of times these growths happen during your reproductive years in actually a lot of women. But for those people that it causes them problems, you will see signs. A lot of people, they'll be like, oh, I have, they'll have just horrible menstrual cycles, lasting long. Your menstrual cycle really shouldn't last more than 5 to 7 days. Okay. My friend that I just mentioned, her periods will last 2 weeks. She would have 4 or 5 heavy period days. Now, my period lasts 3 days. By my 5th day, it's all gone. I have 1 heavy day, right? So I never had an issue. And then when I got pregnant with my baby, the fibroids were in and around the uterus, and they just kept monitoring it, because what makes it dangerous, for example, during reproduction is that, although they're non-cancerous, they can grow fast and they will start to compete with the nutrients in your body and the blood because it wants to feed itself. It's almost like it acts like a cancerous cell, although it's not a cancerous cell, right? So when you are in a pregnancy, for example, it may put your baby at risk because now the fibroid is taking nutrients away from a growing baby. So in my friend's case, for example, after she got married, she already knew she had fibroids just because, I mean, she's anemic. She has to go for iron infusions. These fibroids have given her issues for years. So now that she got married and, looking to start a family, she decided to finally go and get them surgically removed, which I think I saw the post about Lupita and how she had over 50, 75 fibroids, like 25 of them removed, and she still has a whole lot more. That's insane. That's a really, really, really severe case, but most women do have fibroids. My friend mentioned she started going for a long time. She didn't want to do surgery. She's one of those people who doesn't get vaccinated. She didn't take the COVID vaccine. Like she totally tries to be against this whole healthcare system. So she, for a long time, declined the route of surgery and wanted to do naturopathic ways and stuff. And it did help. But like I said, everybody's case is different in that when she implemented better diet, exercising, sleeping well, and really just being conscious of taking care of her health, the fibroids did start to shrink. However, hers were already so many and so big to the point where to start a family wasn't ideal, exactly, for her to do. So your body, 9 times out of 10, when there is an issue, our bodies are so beautiful. It will speak to you. It will talk to you. A lot of times, like I said, we don't listen. We ignore the symptoms. Or we, don't want to accept that there's something wrong. So we say there's nothing wrong. Oh, that's just the way I am. Oh, I just have heavy periods. Oh, I just feel tired all the time. Why are you tired all the time? Why do you have these periods that's lasting a week and a half, 2 weeks? Why are you bleeding so much? These, are questions in women, especially young women of reproductive age, should not be ignored. So like I said, 1,000%, eating well, exercising, taking care of your health only helps.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a rich, informative conversation here with you here, Gizelle, and we are very grateful for you stopping by to share these nuggets of knowledge with us. And come back again. We might want to hear from you again and see what else we can do to improve the health of the African diaspora here in the US.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Conversations like this are so needed, so valued in our community. This is part of that knowledge sharing, that you don't know what you don't know, and until you know, then you can do better. So thank you guys for creating a platform such as this so that, our people can be in the know. Appreciate you.
Right. And before we let you go, what is the Instagram handle they can find you to get your information on health tips and all this other stuff that you do online?
Absolutely. So that page is called Health Voice _ Voix Santé. And it has my picture on there, but you guys want this is
how do we spell Voix Santé?
Voix Santé. So health voice _ voix VOIXSANTE.
There we go.
Voice _ voix santé VOIX and then SANTE. And then it's the same on TikTok. I try to not just focus on Congo because Africa is huge and our people is our people. So my goal is to do, I'm doing videos both in Lingala and English, and then English has French subtitles to follow along. But please log on. There's, please comment. Let me know what topics are important to you that should be covered. Really, really focusing on practical life-saving skills that the average person needs to know. You never know when a family member or a stranger, you might be in a bus and you need to do CPR on somebody or help somebody from bleeding from a car accident, things like that you can implement. So please, please, please tap in and let me know what you think.
So I'm following Gizelle already. I've gone to the Health Voice _of Washington.
Hey, you spoke
Washington.
French.
Very
You
good.
spoke French.
This has been Africa Straight Talk. I, along with Kwesi Wilson and Zika, truly appreciate your support. Reach out. We'd love to hear from you, your thoughts, and keep the conversation going.
And find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast by searching Africa Straight Talk. And of course, spread the word, tell a friend or 10 about us. Interested in sponsoring our podcast or being a guest on our show? Email us at africastraighttalk@gmail.com. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We invite you to check back here for our next one. In the meantime, be safe, be well, and love one another.